Hello and welcome to the Whiskey Rant episode 2. We are back. I am Rob. This is Jeremy.
You're not Rob.
Start again. Good thing you said something. I would have just kept going. Hey, welcome to Super Social Club. I'm Jeremy.
This is Whisky In the 6. I'm Rob.
Welcome to the Whiskey Rant podcast.
It's a little crusty.
It's frustrating.
And it's going to be a little bit of a rant.
I don't understand it. I don't know why.
Some sort of injustice.
Anyway, end rant.
Hello and welcome back to the Whiskey Rant podcast. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Rob.
And this is episode 2. A lot of good feedback on our first episode, so happy to bring you guys episode 2. Lots of stuff coming up on the show today. Before we get into all that, let's just mention real quick what happened in last week's episode. We went on a bit of a rant. We mentioned Ralfy and his stance on not reviewing any no-age statement whiskeys, and he kind of did a little response video to that.
He did, and what I thought was really cool was that it was timely as well. It was right after we posted our podcast/video. I wonder where he actually heard it, or if he heard it and just maybe through the grapevine heard that he should address this.
We like to think that Ralfy is an avid watcher of our channels, but we're not going to make that assumption at all. But yeah, so we'll link to his video in the description of this if you're watching this on YouTube. But really, he kind of went over his whole reasoning of why he taking a stance on not reviewing non-aged statement whiskeys, and it's really an interesting view, and it's definitely something that everyone should check out.
Yeah, they need to watch that video. And honestly, for me personally, I was really appreciative of the video because it gave me a chance to see some of the no-age statement whiskeys that he's been targeting, that he's been drinking, and I'm going to go buy that Aaron that he mentions in that video, right? So I thought that was really cool. I thought that, it was really cool that he kind of responded to us, to our video. And just to preference this, it wasn't during the rant. It was what's happening in YouTube.
Sure, it wasn't our rant topic.
Exactly.
It was just more of a commentary on YouTube reviewers.
And I think people that watch us know we're big fans of Ralfy. Like, this wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Ralfy, right? So we're big fans, and I thought it was pretty cool to kind of get a response from him.
Always great to listen to Ralfy. I always respect his opinion. So yeah, definitely we'll link to that. Check that out. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you're listening to us, we're on Apple iTunes, we're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, all the major listening things.
Firefox, I thought I saw as well.
Yeah, so we're on all the big ones. So if you're listening to us there, or you can watch us, of course, on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
So on today's show, as always, we're going to go through a whiskey review. We're going to do a rant topic. This week's rant topic is going to be chasing bottles, new releases, the fight to get your hands on one, to be the first one to grab a bottle of it. Always a wild ride for sure.
A ride we probably perpetuate a little bit, I think.
Yeah, right.
Right. So we'll get into that later, but
we've got some stuff on secondary market finds, of course. Kind of relate to that as far as the challenges that we face here in Canada getting new releases because they're always somewhat delayed. So we'll touch on that, and then our whiskey tube commentary this week is going to be about being a whiskey tuber, being a whiskey reviewer, and the stuff that comes along with that, getting offers through people in the industry to promote product on your channel.
Yeah, and maybe the pressures that go along with maybe even accepting something like that, because we put a lot of money into these channels that's out of pocket. So yeah, we'll get into that.
We'll get into that. We'll get into some crazy things that we've been offered to promote on our channels. So we'll get all of that. Let's start off with the whiskey. So Elijah Craig Barrow Proof. Everyone knows this one. It has great value. 60-ish US dollars. Suggested retail price.
Yeah.
So
it probably ranges from like 60 to, let's say, like 80.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. I think the cheapest you'll find it is maybe like a $59.99 and then upwards. I know I purchased one of these for $65 in the States. Got lucky, found one on the shelf when I was in Florida.
We were gifted one of these as well.
This one is a gift from a good friend of the show, Tyler. You know him as Red Beard Racing. in the comments section.
Sirens going off, magnificent bastards.
Yeah, that's right. Check out my review of the Woodford Reserve Double Oak. I did a little tribute to that. But I'm going to crack this bad boy right open right now.
Yeah.
Tell them what else we got on the table.
So
Got some other batches here.
We got a batch from 2017. This is batch C. So it says C917. I'm going to pour these as I say what they are. So we have a little bit of each. We don't need a lot, I guess.
So tell them about the batches, because these things have come out 3 times a year.
Yeah, so 3 times a year, always ABC. And you'll know what year it comes from because the last 2 digits represent that year. So over here is the one that I own. This is the B519, so batch B of 2019. And this one's kind of unique because it's the lowest apparently of the bottling ABV. So it's 61.1%. 122.2 proof.
Right, so the one that Tyler graciously gifted us was A120. So that was the first batch of 2020. Now they've come out with the second one. They've had the B batch now.
And batch A from 2020 seems like it's a face melter. Like it's what, 68.3%?
They get up there. They get up to like 140.
Would this like technically be considered a hazmat?
No.
No, it has to be 170 or up?
Yeah.
So 140 and up.
So 140 and up proof would be considered the quote unquote hazmat, which
yeah, those have been famous for years, like the old dumpy style
the old
version.
dumpy styles, yeah. And we'll touch on that and kind of the secondary market on those as we move along.
Yeah.
So let's see. You want to start with one that's been open for a bit and let this new one just air out?
So yeah, let's start with the 2017. The batch B. Sorry, the batch C. C917. That's this one on the far end, and the ABV is 65.5, so 131 proof.
So the reason why we think these are decent values is because you're getting a lot of whiskey, right? It's 12 years old,
Yeah.
age stated on the side, high ABV.
Now, bourbon drinkers enjoy drinking barrel-proof bourbon. That's kind of the new. I don't want to say new, but that's been the thing for the last 5 years ish. They want that barrel-proof. Like barrel-proof became more popular within, I would say, the last 6-7 years,
Sure.
maybe. Usually, for a Scotch drinker, a cask-strength whiskey will go a long way because you're adding a little bit of water in it, right? You don't have to pour as big a dram, and the water will like substitute whatever. But if you're drinking this a full ounce or more at cask strength without adding water, then I mean you're not really getting more whiskey out of it, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. So this is a Heaven Hill product. The mash bill: 78% corn, 12% malted barley, and just 10% rye.
Very nice.
So yeah, lots of like brown sugar, cinnamon notes coming off for me for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually something I noticed in this one that I didn't notice. Maybe it's because it's been open for so long. When would you say that you opened that one?
2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
It's been open a while.
There's a really nice like black cherry note coming in at the back end, like right at the back, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, this thing is a heavy hitter for sure. Definitely get that like Kentucky hug on the finish.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, really nice. That's a good one actually.
Yeah, so I'm not sure like what the most like sought after batches are. I know those old stubby bottles get a lot of praise on the secondary market. They go for a lot of money.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure like what is the consensus on batches.
There are guys that literally like know every batch and can like list off the ones that were the best of the last 10 years or whatever.
We'll go mash. Follow Mash and Drum. He reviews a lot of those ones. Yeah.
I guess we could have put this into two categories tonight. There's a bit of a rant that can be said about these whiskeys. Like literally, there's a ECBP review out every 30 seconds. Like it's like if you go on like worldtracker.com, guaranteed you're seeing like new ECBP review every 30 seconds because like that's what it feels like. There's a lot of ECBP reviews out there.
That's all you need to have a channel on YouTube is a wood panel background and a bottle of ECBP and you're good.
That's it. That's
10,000 subscribers immediately. That's all you need to do. Well, let's get into the rant about today's episode. It's going to be chasing new releases and like the pressure as a YouTuber to maybe be the first one to have the new release, get your review out, and hit the market running.
Yeah, I'm sure you felt it. I've felt it for a long time. The new Macallan edition is coming out.
Sure.
Who's going to be the first guy to grab that bottle,
Absolutely.
throw it up on their review? This last release of the Macallan Edition 5, I was one of the first, and I was so excited about it.
Yeah, right.
I was so excited about it. I think I was the YouTube first. And it's such a sad game. Like, it's just...
I know. Right?
It's demoralizing. Like, retrospectively, of course, I looked back at, like, my reaction to being the first to review that bottle, and I'm like, I didn't even give it enough time to, like, do what I normally do with whiskeys.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to be the first.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the biggest problem with trying to be the first as a YouTuber.
Sure.
Right? But there's so much.
Well, I was doing some research for this and looking at our fellow colleagues on WhiskyTube and looking at how fast everyone's trying to pull out reviews. Now, if you look at the Blood Oath number 6, right, the newest Blood Oath release, Mash and Drum put a review out on April 27th.
Yep.
Bourbon Junkies posted a review 2 hours after that.
Wow.
Whiskey Crusaders was the next day, about 20 hours later. And then another channel called Bourbon Bites about an hour after that. So within the span of 24 hours, you had 4 channels releasing the exact same review of the exact same whiskey.
And there's probably, I mean, depending on the size of the channel, of course, but there's probably a drop-off in views based on the time that you've posted that video, right? So, like, the first guy's going to get a lot of attention, and then the attention dies down unless the first guy hypes it to like beyond hype, and then everybody's like anticipating to see what everybody else is gonna say.
Sure. I mean, look at the new Wild Turkey Masters Keep 17-year-old Ball and Bond, right? Newest release came out in June. Channels like Fred Minnick, he's from Bourbon Pursuit podcast. He released one on June 17th. Mash and Drum 2 days later, Bourbon Junkies 2 days after that, ADHD Whiskey a day after that, and then It's Bourbon Night 2 days after that. So again, just like within a week, almost every single major bourbon channel is pumping out that review as quick as possible. And I think it's good. I mean, you get all their perspectives all at once.
Absolutely.
And if everyone's concise and on the same page about it, then you can kind of trust that and be like, all right, this is an actual good release, and you could go after it. And having all that information right away when the bottle still might be on the shelf is good, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think we see this a little bit more with bourbon because bourbon is marketed in this like continent at least a little better in the sense that people know exactly when something's gonna drop in the US, and there's guys lined up for it that day. They get it, they bring it home, and they're ready to review it right away. And a lot of these bourbon guys, that's what they do. So you have here as well the Elijah Craig 18-year-old. You have price drop in brackets.
Yeah, so the Elijah Craig 18-year-old, it seemed like everyone was getting their hands on Elijah Craig 18-year-old. And I'm like, well, I thought this was a little more allocated. Maybe they dropped the price. Maybe it's they're producing more. But yeah, like look at Mash and Drum. They did it on May 11th. Scotch Test Dummies, 6 days after that. Yeah. A good channel called Bourbon Judge, he did it the same day as well. So all of a sudden, like, all these new releases are just popping up, boom, 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 right on reviewers doing them.
It's crazy. The one that blows my mind, I'm looking at it right now, is the Ardbeg 5. The
Wee
5-year-old,
Beastie.
the Wee Beastie. Like,
so this one, the Wee Beastie is crazy because like if you want to see how many whiskey review channels are on YouTube, search Wee Beastie because you get like I had no idea how many whiskey reviewers are out there. And yeah, Eric Waite, he wanted to be the first to do it. I think he ordered his from the UK. It didn't wait for it to hit American shelves yet.
Exceptional prices to get that.
Well,
first.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure he did with the tariffs, the shipping, whatever. So he released one on May 15th. Malt Muser did it the exact same day. A channel called Kelly Sparks, he did the exact same day. Whiskey Quest again the same day. So within 1 day, you have 4 channels doing it. another channel called Prime Whiskey. 3 days after that, Eric Waite did another video, 2 more videos, 3 more videos actually, comparing it to other things. So he's pumping out content on the WhiskyBase quite
Eric.
a bit.
He's Ardbeg Homer. There's no bigger Ardbeg Homer than
loves
Eric
his
Waite.
Ardbeg hard.
Good for him, man.
But again, like, yeah, so lots of different perspectives. So a challenge that we have here in Canada is that stuff doesn't come out in Canada for months later.
No.
I remember I was talking to a rep in Alberta, and he's like, yeah, we'll get it in the fall. I'm like, the fall? He's like 4 months behind America. It's frustrating for us.
Yeah. We were lucky to get it, I think, what was it? No. Yeah. We acquired it through trade. A friend of ours actually acquired it through trade. But so I was lucky enough to try it, but I didn't feel the pressure of releasing a review because there was already so many, right? You already listed a whole bunch. We got the Scotch Test Dummies on the 23rd of May, as well as Whiskey Quest on the May 23rd as well, right?
Sure.
Scotch Test Dummies, a lot of our fan base watches them as well, if not all of our fan base,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
So you know that they're going to be able to watch that video, and if they're still interested in it, they might click our video to watch it, whatever. But by that point, is it still relevant? I guess that's the biggest question about all of these things.
That's true. And a good point that actually Ralfy had made, I forget which video it was. It was a recent one, but he can't get, I would think it was the most recent video. He can't get our big wee beastie.
Yeah, it was about the one that he was addressing our comments about noise.
I'm like, guys, someone send him a bottle of wee beastie here. Come on, I know like half of his supporters have one. So.
For sure.
But yeah, so I did a video on Lafroig Carchis back, I think it was the Fino, trying to get it here in Ontario. So when it was released at the LCBO, they post all their inventory online. So you can see exactly what store has what.
That's right.
And I mentioned this in my review. I went to the LCBO that had inventory, waited outside the door, and when they opened, was the first one in there. I'm like, do you have this bottle? It shows you have 6 in stock.
Yeah.
The manager's like, we don't have it. I'm like, well, what do you mean you don't have it? Like, it says you have them in stock. So I go around, I talked to another manager that was working there.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, were you waiting here outside the door? I'm like, yeah, I was waiting here. I'm like, okay, come with me. And then she pulls one under the counter and hands it to me. So they were just hoarding them.
That was basically to shut you up. That's why.
Man, so like, you can't do that. Not with a government-run store.
I
Like,
know,
this
it's
isn't
not right.
freaking Bob's Liquor in wherever that can, hold them for their special clients, whatever.
That's the
You have them in your store, you have to put them out. Like,
Absolutely.
You can't do that.
Absolutely. Like, it's ridiculous that they even, but it probably happens all the time.
I know, right?
And it probably happens with all the whiskeys that like we would want. Like they're starting to get a little bit more clever with the way they put things out, because you walk into Summer Hill or you walk into Cooper Street and there's stuff on shelves that do not show up on the website.
Doesn't hit the inventory. Summerhill, if you don't know, Summerhill, the biggest flagship LCBO store in Ontario.
Yeah.
It's here in Toronto. They don't list so much stuff on their website, and they won't take calls about it too, because that's another issue that a lot of people were having. They were calling up the store, be like, hey, can you put this on hold? Or a service the LCBO sometimes does in Ontario, that they'll ship something from one store to a closer store to use.
Right.
You can get it.
I like how you said sometimes.
Sometimes.
there, because they won't always do that.
Summerhill won't do it.
Which is
Not in my experience, anyway. In a lot of people's experience, they won't do it. Maybe they will sometimes. It all depends on the manager that's in the store that day.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it is a good service to have, because people that don't live in the GTA never going to see a whole bunch of releases, right? There's so much stuff that comes in that just goes to the flagship stores.
Yeah.
Maybe Ottawa a little bit here and there, but most of it's all GTA and never goes to the outskirts of Ontario.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because it usually tends to happen mostly with bourbon, though, I will say.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have to make a stink. I know someone who has made a stink because of that exact thing. And they called up Hello LCBO. They sent emails, and they made a big stink. They tried to go as high up as they could, and the LCBO found them a bottle of what they were looking for and sent it to them. So
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool of them, but it shouldn't take to get to that level. in order to have to get what you want. If it's in inventory, if it's on the website, you show up, it should be there as long as you're one of the first ones or one of the first 6 anyway.
Yeah.
But I think the fairest way to do like limited releases is throw them all online, put them 1 per customer, and let it go.
Yeah.
Or if they have enough, 2 per customer. You know what I mean? And then whatever's left over from that release, you throw them to shelves after the fact, right? I think that would be cool.
All right, so moving on to the next batch, which is this one.
The B519.
B519. Now, I've heard good things about this batch for some. I think of people like this one a lot.
So it's the lowest, apparently, of all the ABVs that they've put out.
Okay, so maybe they don't like this one.
So you would think, yeah. I know Jason from the Mash and Drum liked it. I remember watching his video on it because he influenced me in making that trade when I got that bottle.
Yeah, so it's still 122.2. I mean, 61.1% ABV. Nothing to shake a stick at.
Right.
It's good.
It is good.
It definitely, you notice the ABV a little bit less than the first batch.
Yeah. A little less burn. I just added water to all of these.
Okay.
And that sip was really nice. It's got a lot going on.
Just like so much like volume and impact on the palate with these bourbons. I mean,
yeah. I mean, and when I say it's got a lot going on, I don't mean that in the Scotch way.
Right.
It's got a lot going on for a bourbon, for sure.
Yeah, definitely a bourbon drinker style of bourbon here, where it's very bold flavors. You get the nice sweetness. Lots of brown sugar, caramels, vanillas, of course.
Yeah. And I think bourbon drinkers are onto something in approaching or seeking out the heavier ABV batch strength or batch proof or barrel proof whiskeys. And it's because they're all very, very similar in a bunch of ways that ABV does set them apart. And a lot of times it comes with much more flavor at a higher ABV.
Sure.
So I think that's what it is at the end of the day, why they constantly are pursuing that heavy ABV.
I think that with bourbon, it's a little, like comparing it to Scotch, I'd say Scotch may be a little bit more palatable when you're sipping something that's 40 ABV versus a bourbon that's 40% ABV. I just think that a Scotch will hold up a bit more. A bourbon seems really, really weak at 40%.
It does. And what I find the big draw for bourbon is the sweetness of it. And you lose a lot of that sweetness with added water.
Sure.
At 40%, you lose a lot of sweetness in a bourbon. It almost becomes just oaky.
I mean, I had that Basil Hayden's 10-year-old at 40%, and it's the worst. It tastes like bourbon flavored water.
I don't get what the hype around Basil Hayden's is. They always...
You know what?
bottle.
When I first started drinking, like getting into bourbon, I had a bottle of Basil Hayden's and I enjoyed it.
Did you? Yeah.
I think it's a great beginner's bourbon, but as soon as you move past it and you find higher ABV stuff with more flavor, more power, you never go back to it.
Yeah, I could see that. I think some of my first bourbons were, I want to say Four Roses and stuff like that, and they never usually doesn't make any sense, but they don't often bottle lower than 40. I think 40. They do have an expression at 40, but their single cask or single barrel is like $45, or it used to be $45 here, which is a great deal.
Yeah.
And it was 50 ABV, I think 50%.
Was it?
It's 100 proof, something like that.
Yeah, Knob Creek was one of the first ones I got into. Really liked Knob Creek at 50 ABV.
Yeah, the regular Elijah Craig 12-year-old was one of the ones that I really liked as well in the beginning, and that was 47 point something, if I recall correct.
Right.
So
just commenting really quick on secondary market. New releases of this don't really have much of a secondary market value in the United States. Here in Canada, we do pay a bit of a premium, bringing them across the border. LCBO do sell these. I think it's $150.
$150, yeah.
So yeah,
it's already secondary price.
Yikes.
Yeah, I think to get it in Canada on a secondary, we were saying earlier, it's like $180, so $30.
Yeah, I mean, I got offered $180 for a light. I'm like, are you crazy? And this is how much these go for here? If I would have known that. I mean, God. The older ones, the older grenade style stubby bottles. If you're watching us on YouTube, I'll put it here. Those can command a serious price, $300 to $400 US dollars on the secondary. Yeah,
and the hazmat, the old hazmat, the dumpy hazmats, those go for big money as well. But at the end of the day,
trying to find a batch one. Batch ones might go for a lot, like the very first electric Barrow booth grenade style bottle. I mean, I would imagine at $500 plus for that bottle.
Yeah.
You know, people want to have the whole collection, right? They want to have the entire vertical lineup.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are people out there that have the entire collection.
Of course.
Unopened.
In their basement.
Multiples.
Well, while we're talking about secondary markets, let's get into the secondary market finds. I wanted to talk about a little bit of the challenges that we face here in Canada and the premium that secondary market bottles get in Canada, especially because they don't get released here, as we mentioned before. The WhiskyBase, perfect example. Saw one on the secondary market sell for 260 Canadian dollars. That's about 190 US. Can you believe that?
Well, I can't believe it because I know when that comes to Ontario, it's not going to warrant anything north of $80.
Yeah.
The 10-year-old has been $100, which is actually kind of high.
Yeah.
Right?
Because it's 55 US.
Right. So it's 55 US. Roughly the conversion, you're looking at about $80 Canadian. That's for the 10-year-old. Almost globally, right? So $100 Canadian for the 10-year-old at the LCBO. The 5-year-old hypothetically should go for 50% of that, but it won't. It'll probably go for about $80, right? So $80 Canadian. People are paying 3 times that.
I mean, you're paying for, you know, having the first one in Canada, kind of, right? Because that bottle came into this country illegally, so you're paying for that, you know, premium, whatever.
Of course.
Ardbeg Black committee release, another great example. I saw one sell 830 Canadian dollars. That's about 600 US.
Oh man, like you have to be the type of guy that can sleep easy at night. Doesn't matter what you do, because $830. What did those cost us retail? I think $170.
Yeah.
Minus 10% because we get, you know, the YouTuber little discount.
Sure.
So $170 minus 10%. And these guys are paying $830.
Now, to preface that, those prices have come down. More have sold recently for about half of that. But that was essentially first one to a Canadian secondary group. That's how much it went for. And now that's not a straight sale. That was in a lotto.
So now it's just the retail price multiplied by 4 as opposed to by 8. Yeah. And that's absurd. It's crazy. Like, there should not be.
Now, what happened with committee releases? Because I thought you had to sign up through Ardbeg to be a committee member to get the releases.
There was a time.
And now they're just like, no, we'll just pump it to everyone.
We're just going to give it to whoever is willing to pay. I don't know what's happened, honestly. It doesn't, like, if they, I truly believe this is the fault of what our last week's topic was, which is accessing whiskey from around the world. It doesn't matter, like, where you live. Mm-hmm. Because in Ontario, Ardbeg committee members have to be a member at in a different province, essentially, in order to get the committee, like, releases.
Yeah.
So I think the line has become blurred so much over the years because they're like, well, is he a committee? I don't really want to check if he's a committee release member. Is he willing to pay? Sure, I'm gonna send it over to that guy.
Like, yeah, Ardbeg's like, okay, we're selling, 4,000 committee release bottles. Like, why don't we just multiply that by 10 and sell it to everyone? And then,
right?
Sure.
I guess I don't even know if it's an Ardbeg thing. I think it's really a retailer thing, like a store thing. Wow. I think if Ardbeg found out, they'd probably be a little bit pissed.
You don't think Ardbeg knows that everyone's getting their bottles that are committee release?
Well, we know that people are getting them from the secondary market. There's nothing they can do about that, right?
Yeah.
But retail stores should not be selling Ardbeg committee release to people that are not Ardbeg members. Like, did it cost us anything to become an Ardbeg committee member? I don't think it did.
No, it's free.
I think it's free. So Like, we're not talking a lot of work here. You go on, you fill out a form, and you're like Springbank. Okay, we paid what 100. Was it 50 pounds or something like that to become a member? So warranted. You know, they're gonna monitor it a little bit more and whatever, and maybe there's gonna be less society members. But with Ardbeg, there's literally no excuse. You just go on, you sign up, and
sure.
You know, the thing is tracking that. Like, how these guys, like, we do it through a specific store, so they should have our name on file. Is he a Springbank Society member? Yes. Is he a Ardbeg Society member? Yes.
Right.
But Joe Blow emails these guys, says, hey, I want a bottle. It's like, well, let's see if your name comes up in the lottery because...
Yeah, but look, they're just on the shelf in the States.
Yeah.
They're just on the shelf.
And that's another thing.
Right? They're not checking your membership at checkout. They're just... You pick it up and it's yours.
I think what's happened is there's probably a lot of people, due to disappointment over the years, or maybe cash flow or whatever else, that are members that have refused the bottles.
Sure.
So they had to start selling to the general public, maybe. Yeah. I do know that there's been the rare occasion that the LCBO gets a committee release.
Really?
Yeah, and like it lasts for 5 seconds and it's gone. In Nova Scotia, there was the Ardbeg Drum Committee release for a long time. Yeah. And anybody could go on the website and buy that.
Sure.
So...
Yeah. One more ridiculous price I got for you. The new Lefroy Cartridge, the 2020 port and wine cask, 455 Canadian dollars. That's about 330 USD.
There's a few guys that are responsible for these actions. And we kind of probably already know who they are, and we're not going to mention any names, but I think Facebook has a lot to do with what's happening here. And
well, go ahead.
Facebook has literally ruined the secondary market, in my opinion, because these lotteries that occur that blow up the price. Like, what one man is willing to pay for a bottle on secondary is one thing. Mm-hmm. And then what 26 men are willing to pay for a secondary bottle is a totally different ballgame. Like, It's just, you're not even talking about the same thing here anymore. You're talking about like...
So let me just quickly explain what we're talking about. So a raffle, a razzle, whatever you want to call it, a lottery, someone will take a bottle, they'll sell spots in a raffle essentially. So let's say 26 spots. If the bottle is $260, it's $10 a spot. Each person pays $10. The lottery goes. If your number hits, that you win the bottle. So everyone is putting in a little bit of money to win a bottle. It's not a straight sale. So you can command some more money in these lottos, and some of them just go for crazy money because it's sure it's overpriced, but whatever. It's only $5 more per spot than I would normally pay. But there you go.
But it's always the usual suspects. So it's like, you're paying a little less for this bottle if you win. But you've paid for that bottle 10 times in all the lotteries that you've done over the years.
Never add up how much you spent on lotteries.
No, you can't. It's like playing a slot machine. You never actually count how much you've lost.
You win $100 and you think you're ahead, but you've dropped $750 already.
Exactly.
So I've got a bottle for you. Secondary market find. I just emailed it to you. You can open the link if you want. So you're looking for a bottle, a special bottle for your 10,000 subscriber mark.
10,000, and I've started this search early because I know that, it might take me a couple months to get to 10,000. I think I'm at almost 9,100 now. Mm-hmm. So I'm at 9,100 subscribers on YouTube, Whisky in the Six if you're listening to this for the first time. And I want to get a special bottle for my 10,000 review. But my 500 video is probably coming in and it's going to disappear in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I don't know what it is, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. But I find it more important, the 10,000 mark. And for me, the reason why the 10,000 mark is important is because when I started this channel, I was like, if I get to 10,000, I'll be happy. And thinking back to that comment, it just makes no sense because you're never going to be satisfied with 10,000.
Sure.
But for me, that was a big deal back then because the only guy that had close to that, which I don't even think he had at the time, was Ralfy. I think he might have been 8,000-9,000 at the time.
Wow.
And then it just blew up because everybody started. There was a whole bunch of channels all at once.
Yeah.
I think when I started my channel, the Scotch test dummies had probably 1,000 subs, and I used to look up to these guys like crazy, and I still do, of course, but that just goes to show you the growth of this whole YouTubing thing, right? This whole whiskey tube thing.
Absolutely.
This guy's with, well, the Whiskey Vault has over 300,000 subscribers on one of their channels.
The other channel's about the same.
Yeah, so there you go. And then, I mean, you have 22,000, right? I mean, there's a lot of guys out there with a whole bunch of subs, but.
So this is the bottle I found for you. Did you know that there is a new #1 whiskey on WhiskyBase?
It's a new. I already have a bad feeling about.
It's not
this.
too bad. It's not too bad. So the whiskey #1 spot on WhiskyBase. Now, granted, there's only been 15 votes, so it is kind of skewed as far as that concerned. It is a 1964 Glen Grant 50-year-old. Now, I looked up, and there is a website selling this. You want to know the price? It's not too bad.
I'm scared.
Only 1,400 British pounds.
So $2,800 roughly.
Yeah. No, about, what is it, 32.
So we had a chance to try one of these. We tried the one, not this exact one, of course, but which one did Jasper pour for us?
It wasn't 50 years old.
It was 50 years old. It might have been older than this one, actually. It might have been 52.
Oh my god.
So, but this one has the pedigree of being the #1 on WhiskyBase.
There you go. So only bottled at 43%, which is probably, close to cask strength, I would think. After 50 years in a barrel, it could be, in the mid to high 40s.
43% is probably 1 or 2% off of cask strength.
Sure.
I would think at that point.
Yeah. So there you go. It's available now. You can buy it. Whiskyboys.com has it up, 1,400 British pounds. So yeah, it's 2,300 Canadian dollars. We can split that, 20 ways, and it's only $125 each.
So if everybody gets a quarter ounce, we can split that a whole bunch of ways.
See, it's not even that much money.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad. You know what? $100 a dram for a 50-year-old Glen Grant. That's the #1 on WhiskyBase. It might be a deal.
I think it might be, and I'm almost sad that we're saying this live on a podcast
because it's gonna sell it.
Because it might sell out before I get a chance.
But you know what? Maybe one of our friends will buy it for us. Maybe Jasper would be like, you know what, guys, I got that 50-year-old too.
Jasper would, you know what? He'd be all over it. I think he'd be interested just because it's so high on WhiskyBase. How many votes are we talking on WhiskyBase?
That's right. It's only 15 votes. So like
15
like I
votes.
said, it could drop. It's only 15 votes, but there's only 100 and how many bottles are available? I think it was only like 180 bottles or something. So there's not much out there.
Okay. Yeah. So I have a formula for when I purchase really expensive things. Or things that are going to take up a lot of my time. So when I read a book, it's terrible because I wrote a book myself, and getting people to read a book is a horrible experience. But I don't read a book that's less than 10,000 reviews and less than a 4 out of 5. So that's a terrible way to explain how I read a book, because now nobody's going to read my book. But I kind of have a similar formula for WhiskyBase.
Yeah.
And I try not to buy anything that has less than 100 votes that's less than 90.
Right.
So if it's expensive and it's less than 90 or less than 100 votes, I kind of ignore it. But there are the exceptions. Like in order to be #1 on WhiskyBase, that has to be what, like a 96, 97?
Yeah, it's up there. I'll post it here on the screen of what it is, if it's still up there. I mean, like I said, this thing could move because it is only about 15 votes on it right now.
And that's the thing about 15 votes is that like 2 votes really can skew the numbers.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas you have a couple hundred, and if a guy tanks it and gives it a 2 out of 100, it's not going to really make that big a dent. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
That's kind of like my formula for purchasing when it comes to whiskey and books. And actually, I'm watching movies as well, to be honest with you. IMDb, I kind of do the same. It has to be a 7 or higher. That's just the way I roll.
All right, so moving on to the Elijah Craig Barrow Proof Batch A120. What are your thoughts on this one?
I really like it. Compared to the other 2, I think it's definitely the standout.
This is my favorite of the 3 as well, and surprising just for a straight neck pour.
So, as I said, I added a little bit of water to all 3 of these. I find this to be the sweetest. I find it to be definitely butterscotch heavy, like a lot of like caramel or however you want to pronounce that, caramel for the Americans out there. Less oaky than the other two. I think that's why I like it a little bit more than the other two.
I think this one has a little more viscosity. I feel like it coats your palate a bit more. It's a little more like viscous,
More syrupy.
more creamy, more syrupy.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. I think that the consensus on Whiskey Tube is that people did like this batch quite a bit.
Yeah. I think the bourbon guys are onto something, man. I think the higher the ABV, usually the better the bourbon. Obviously, that's not a rule for all bourbons, but it seems to be like the fair assessment.
I think for our tasting tonight, it confirmed it, at least for these 3 batches anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, really good. Let's talk about our last thing, and then we'll give that batch a score at the very end.
Sounds
Last
good.
thing we're going to talk about, our Whiskey Tube topic tonight, is kind of what it's like to be a whiskey tuber in the respect of people reaching out to you, offering you products to promote on your channel, bottles to review, etc., etc. You have some experience for that.
Yeah. So, as I stated when we first started the podcast today, is there's a pressure out there to kind of want to entertain some of these offers because there's a lot of money going into these channels.
For sure.
You know, like it took me a long time to get into the green, and I'm not even sure if I'm in the green because I stopped calculating a long time ago as well. So there's a lot of pressure, and you get some of these weird offers to like promote a coconut rum on your channel, and like you're like, well, that doesn't really fit in, but maybe I could squeeze it in. And obviously, like, I don't know if too many whiskey tubers are doing the coconut rum offer, but a prime example of these guys finding me when I was at a pretty vulnerable state is Snups. Snups was a company that wanted to promote their app, which basically consisted of collections. So
Like categorizing your
That's right.
collection
Yeah.
on the app. Yeah.
Yeah, so you could categorize. You can have categories within categories of your whiskey collection. You could have like your comic collection and whatever else. Not that this is a promo for them at all, but this is actually a knock on them because, you know, they offered me a set of dollars, a dollar amount a month to promote their app on my channel a couple times a month. And it had to be a 30-second ad, and it had to be very specific to what they wanted me to target. And I found myself, like, especially early on when I was just getting used to being on camera, just getting used to talking on camera, not really editing my videos that much at that point, very flustered when I had to do an ad for them because I didn't feel like it related to anything that I wanted my channel to represent. Mm-hmm. So you have some experience with this as well. So why don't you talk?
Yeah, so I've been reached out to promote lots of different weird things. Some things that I took and some things that I just said no thank you to.
Right.
The things I took, there was a really cool company that did decanters, like whiskey decanters. Really awesome one that was like essentially like a glass blown ship inside of a tube that had spouts in the base with like 4 glasses. Mm-hmm. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll put it here. Really awesome. So yeah, I gladly accepted that. I put it in a couple of videos because it was something that I would definitely use and thought it was really cool and didn't have an issue promoting that at all. Of course, some bottles. You know, we were friends with some reps. McAllen Highland Park.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, would you like this Highland Park 17? The light
or the dark?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I would
of
love
course.
to. I'd love to promote that. Absolutely.
Well, it's bottles that like, and this is the key too, is bottles that you're already kind of interested in as well, right? Like
Sure.
I've said no to reps because I didn't think their whiskey would work on my channel, but it took me a long time to start to say no. So or say, well, I don't know if I can review this, this, and this, but I can review this because it's something that fits into the criteria of what I'm looking for to drink.
Right. I mean, we each reviewed that bottle of the Japanese whiskey, the Mizatu?
I don't know. I forget what it's called. We didn't love it.
I'll put a voiceover right here what it is. And then if you're watching on YouTube, I'll put it up. But you give me a bottle, you're getting an honest review. That was my lowest score for any whiskey that was over $100. And, you know, I'm like, I'm sorry, I just didn't like it. And that's the risk you take when you send a bottle. And a lot of people are like, well, you can't honestly review a product if you're given it to it for free. I disagree with that.
I disagree with that.
I think in my philosophy is that if you're giving me a bottle and I don't like it and I somehow like ruin the relationship with the rep, then you know what? I don't want your product anyway because I don't even like it. So
that's right. The other thing is if I absolutely hate a whiskey, I will tell the rep, I don't like your whiskey. I'm not going to review it for your sake, just because I don't want to damage that relationship. And I also honestly and mainly what it is for every 1 or 10 guys that drink that whiskey, there's gonna be one guy that actually loves it. And people take it personally when you trash a whiskey they love, right? So I always kind of keep that in mind because I don't want to trash something because some guy's trash is another guy's gold. You know what I mean? So that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to promote great whiskey. I'm not here to trash whiskey I don't like. And I'm gonna say whiskey I don't like because, like we said, everybody's opinion is different. So that's kind of my philosophy behind the whole thing. I just will ignore reviewing whiskeys that I think I'm not going to love, or like it gets to a certain category. If I'm going to give it a 60, it doesn't belong on my channel kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah, but, I mean, it is what it is, right? If you're gonna if you have confidence in your product that you want to give it to a reviewer and then leave them to their devices to review, you have to live with the results.
Absolutely, and I mean, if that's like the way you want to approach it, then you should, because there are people that want to know. Don't even like think about wasting your money on this bottle because
absolutely
right. And that's the thing. Ultimately, we do it for the people watching. So I accept bottles that sometimes are a little too pricey for me to buy, because at the end of the day, if I give a really expensive bottle a mediocre review, people are going to be deterred by like to buy that bottle. Right? Like if the bottle costs $500 and I give it an 81, they're gonna be like, well, Rob gave X, X, and X 90. So, and those are a lot cheaper. I should probably go with those bottles instead of the 81 that he just gave, right? And that's kind of why I do it, is to help people save money. So, I mean, we digress a little bit. We've had some funky offers.
So I'll get into one that was just like ridiculously scammy. A company offered me money to run their VPN like commercial. So like it was a VPN company that would put, I don't know, it's like what, software protection or whatever.
Yep.
So they're like, essentially what they wanted was access to my YouTube channel to run pre-roll commercials on my videos. I'm like, okay, well, this is obviously ridiculous. They're like, let me see the commercial you're gonna run. They're like, no, we're not gonna show it to you until you agree. I'm like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely
No
not.
thanks.
That's insane. Like, how crazy does someone have to be to agree to that?
Yeah, that would be absurd.
But it was like $2,000 a month. They were willing to do it plus click revenue,
which is a big amount of money. Like, you know, if hypothetically you attach that to your Johnny Walker video and you're making a solid amount of money.
Sure.
A month or whatever it is. But
what a crazy, ridiculous, scammy.
Yeah, you're not going to put your name as a human being in jeopardy because some guy wants to throw. Who knows what's on that ad?
Well, I think that, you know what, like the integrity of being a reviewer is worth more than any like free bottle or like whatever. You can't like ruin your integrity as a reviewer, because then you've lost your whole audience, and that's all that you do it for anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead.
One other ridiculous thing that I got offered, it wasn't too long ago, a company called Zot Shots was trying to send me some product. So it's like a ready-to-drink like shooter. just completely ridiculous. I'll put it up on the screen. If you're listening, it's essentially like a peel tab, like Dixie cup with like layered alcohol in it that looks like really like colorful and fruity.
Yeah.
So they have like flavors like strawberry swirl, pink tornado, like kamikaze, mint cracker, and of course Sex on the Beach. So the rep was like, "Hey, we'd love to like send you some product." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think my subscribers are interested in this kind of product." And I'm like, "Thanks, but no thanks." And he emailed me back, he's like, "Okay, I guess you know best." I'm like, "Well, yeah, this isn't fucking Tipsy Bartender."
Bourbon ball!
You know, actually, I recently had an offer for a cream liqueur, but like a Scotch-based cream liqueur. And I told them, listen, this doesn't fit on my channel at all. I can't review this for you. I can't put this on my YouTube channel. But what I can do is take a picture of it, try it, throw it on my Instagram. If that's something you're okay with, then that's what I'll do. Because I do actually enjoy a cream liqueur in my coffee, because it's the replacement of putting cream in your coffee or whatever. Yeah. But you get a little bit of an alcohol hit or whatever.
Sure, a little Irish coffee.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, so I took it. And it's actually really nice stuff. But I told them, like, I can't review this. I can't review this bottle. And if you're still okay with that, then go ahead and send it. And they were fine with it. They sent it anyway, and I threw it up on my Instagram if you guys want to check that out. I did get... Did I leave them here? Yes, I did. I did get an offer to review these glasses a long time ago. And they're not cheap. They're pretty pricey.
Yeah.
But they're aluminum, I think, or stainless steel anyway. Stainless steel on the inside, aluminum probably on the outside to save cost. They got like a felt bottom.
So they're like a giant Glencairn almost.
They're a giant Glencairn essentially, but probably more for the outdoors.
I gotta say, I was just camping. Those would probably work pretty well.
Right, and that's kind of how I explained them. They came in 2 colors. He sent me both colors, and I actually liked them. But here's the thing, I did like them while using them, and I thought they were like convenient and whatever else. Did I ever use them again? We've used them,
right?
When Jasper and Paulo come over and we go deep into those like tasting sessions where we use every single glass in my cupboard.
Yeah.
But that's really the only time we've ever used them. So some of these things you kind of like learn the hard way that maybe you shouldn't have taken.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not knocking these glasses. I think they're actually pretty useful, but I don't use them. I'm gonna use my standard Glencairn, and that's it, right? So
yeah. Well, I think that's a good spot to give us a mark on this. So let's mark the batch that Tyler sent us. So the A120. What would you score this bad boy?
I'm gonna give this one. Honestly, I really liked it, and I was kind of trying to think. Well, I like it more than I think I like the lower ABV one second best, which was the B519. So that's batch B in May of 2019. I'm gonna give this one an 88. I was thinking, should I go 86? Should I go 87? I think it's worth an 88. I think it's something that I wouldn't mind picking up again, to be honest with you. And that's kind of where, like, once you get to the 88 range, that's something that I probably would buy again if I had the opportunity. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with my 88. I think it's good.
I'm gonna go 87 on it, and then bump it up 1 mark for value to make it 88. 88 out of 100 is where I would suggest someone buys a product completely blind without trying it before.
Yeah.
So with that value, if you're spending between $60 to $80 I think it's definitely a buy. Love the viscosity. The high ABV doesn't drink that high. I feel like it was almost maybe like the least heat out of all of these ones.
Absolutely.
Great all around bourbon for sure. So yeah, 88 of 100 for me.
Yeah, that was really good. And that's 2 weeks in a row that we were pretty much exact on our on our marking.
And 2 weeks in a row with bourbon, we have to put a good value Scotch next episode.
Yeah, maybe we'll try to find a good value Scotch. Living in this province might make that a little more difficult.
There's a couple.
Yeah, there's a few.
So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you like to give it a thumbs up, if you're listening to it on a streaming device, give a review if you wish. Until next time, we will see you then. Cheers.
Yeah, and also don't forget to follow this guy on Sipper Social Club if you don't already. And myself on Whiskey in the Six.
All right.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
You're not Rob.
Start again.
You need to get that. You need to keep that. Is there a way to like show that first and then?
This is Rob. I'm Jeremy. I'll figure that out.
You could just say I'm Jeremy and I'll say I'm Rob.
Okay. Yeah, you'll say you're Rob. You say your own name. That's good. I'll say my name.
Just remember your name. That's
I'll remember my name. I can write it down in my hand.
You need to show that.
Long podcast.
All right.